Hey, Charlie Crimebuster here. There's been a bombshell confession in the Natalee Holloway case. We're going to talk about that. And you're going to hear that confession straight from his lips. We're going to cover that and a whole lot more on this episode of Charlie Crimebuster, the bombshell confession in Natalee Holloway's case. This and more on today's program. Welcome to Charlie Crimebuster, what some people are calling the fastest minutes in podcasting.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals interviewed and participating in this show, and do not represent those of Charlie Crimebuster or Peacemaker Network. All individuals described or mentioned in the podcast should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law. This podcast contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, hello and welcome to this another episode of Charlie Crimebuster. Glad to have you as part of the Charlie Crimebuster family today. If you're a first-time listener or you're a seasoned listener, we always encourage you to reach out with a shout-out. You can reach me, Charlie Crimebuster, at gmail.com, charliecrimebuster at gmail.com. In this bombshell confession, we'd love to hear from you about what you think about it. So reach on out with that shout-out. Also, if you'd like to support the program, to get some housekeeping out of the way, go to peacemakernetwork.com. That's peacemakernetwork.com. There you can become a supporter of the program for as little as a couple bucks a month. You can not only help us support the program, but you can help the real heroes in life. I'm talking about law enforcement, first responders, and of course the brave men and women of military. For just a couple of dollars a month, you can be a part of a program. Go on over there and read about it. You can see how you can support others. And then as well, we'd like to also give you an opportunity to get caught up on all the episodes. We just finished, interesting enough, a series on Natalee Holloway. That was before this bombshell confession. You will be amazed, especially in the last part of that series, as I predicted what really happened to Natalee Holloway and how she died. You'll be surprised how it lines up with this bombshell confession. Just go to charliecrimebuster.com. That's charliecrimebuster.com. And there you can get caught up not only on the Natalee Holloway series, but a whole bunch of other series that might be helpful to you. All right, now let's talk about the Natalee Holloway confession, the murderer who actually confessed. First, unless you've been living under a rock, let me get you caught up. It was on May the 26th, 2005. Well, there were a whole lot of excited students. They were prepared to board a plane, head straight to Aruba. Now, Aruba is a beautiful vacation spot, and it became quite a popular spot, especially for the seniors from Mountain Brook Hill High School in Birmingham, Alabama. Now, they would always go to Aruba, and Aruba, of course, is in the Kingdom of Netherlands, not very, very far from the United States as far as a flight is concerned. And because of its location, you see, it is just below the hurricane belt. And so, my friend, it usually has beautiful year-round weather. Yep, sandy, pristine beaches, turquoise waters. Add to that a dynamic nightlife of bars and dance clubs, and you have a place that a lot of college or high school seniors and college students like to go party. Again, it is so popular down there that the island boasts that 92% of their visitors, they're Americans. And of course, this island has all the amenities of us Americans that we like, the McDonald's and all that kind of stuff, along with hotels like the Holiday Inn. In fact, that's where they stayed at. They had the fast food joints, comfortable accommodations, and party on the run. Now, it's a small island, about 20 miles long, 6 miles wide. Those of you who go on cruises, you may have debarked to enjoy your excursion on such like islands. Also, on May the 26th, 2005, 124 students of the high school, they left for the island of Aruba. It was just 2 days after they had graduated. and among them was a beautiful young lady by the name of Beth Holloway, 5'4", slim, blonde hair, blue eyes. She was 18 years of age, as was most of the group. In fact, only about 5 or 6 were under the age of 18. Now, as I pointed out, there was some disagreement from Natalee's family about her going. Mixed feelings, if you please. However, they relented. After all, Beth was an honor student, both in math and Spanish. She was a member of her Bible club, the dance club. She was smart. And her mother said she was responsible, trusted, and dependable. In fact, she had worked hard. She was going to the University of Alabama as a med student on scholarship. She planned to be a doctor. Yes, this was a young lady, as I said before, who could have made a lot of difference in so many lives. And so while there was some reluctance, it appeared that she earned the trip, and so she boarded the plane on May the 26th, 2005, along with 123 of her classmates. Now, while they were there at the motel, there was a casino connected to the motel. Natalee and her friends were there on the last day of the trip that they were to fly back, and there they met the man that would later that night and morning end up murdering her. His name was Jeroen Vandersloot. Now, he told one of his many lies there that night. He told the girls he was there on vacation, when in fact, he was already living on the island with his family going to school. So the girls then invited him to a bar where kids like to go when they were on the island there. And that last night there, Jeroen and a couple of his friends showed up. He hooked up with Natalee. They drank and danced. And ironic enough, at the end of the night, the DJ, in order to honor the people, the young people that were there that week, he played as the last song, Sweet Home Alabama. Could have been the last music that Natalee ever heard. Natalee got in the car with Vandersloot and his friends. The other students didn't think much about it, just thought she was getting a ride back to the hotel at Holiday Inn. However, that moment, my friend, was the very last time they ever saw Natalee Holloway, and she's been missing ever since. And now, with all the investigation, the lies, and it all, we finally have a confession from the guy that murdered her. And it was not the first time, wasn't the first time, that he ever told a story about Natalee. So the question is, can we believe it? Can we really believe it? Now, I want to tell you my opinion about that confession. You're also going to get to hear the confession yourself, right directly from his own lips. But before we do, we want to take a break, as we do every week, and share with you our crazy crook story. This is about a man that was wanted by Florida cops. He attempted to hide from them, get this now, by posting a sign, that's right, posting a sign outside his home. His name is Johnny Yates. He was wanted on aggravated battery, false imprisonment, tampering with charges. And he attempted to avoid his arrest, but get this, by posting a sign outside of his home saying, quote, Johnny Yates does not live here. Seems legit, right? But unsurprisingly, the sign really didn't work, and Yates was arrested after police received a tip-off that he was hiding in the home. Now, Florida Polk County Sheriff's Office, they've actually put this on their Facebook, and they said that one of the worst things about being a cop is you always have to be open to the possibility that people are going to lie to you, no matter how sweet and innocent they seem. And so on Saturday, October the 14th, this is recent, around 2:45 p.m., the Polk County Sheriff's Office deputies went to a resident there on West 10th Street in Lakeland. That was after receiving a tip that a wanted person was at the residence. When the deputies arrived, they noticed a note that was written on a dry erase board in front of a window, and it said those words, Johnny Yates does not live here. Gee, a dry erase board? Never lied to cops before, right? Should they believe it? Well, someone then exited the home, and when they were asked by the police, they did confirm that Yates and a few others were still inside the house. So they surrounded the house, got on a loudspeaker, urged him to come out. When those efforts failed, police have quite a few assortment of tools in their bag, so they got out what is called surrender smoke. That's cops speak for tear gas, and they tear gassed the property. 4 people then left the house, but Yates again was nowhere in sight. That's when good old Dexter the canine, he came into the search. He alerted the officers to a trunk where the suspect was hiding. And the suspect, Johnny, he was promptly arrested, taken to jail. Now, in regards to the 4 others who initially refused to come out, well, Polk County, they write about that. They said each one, get this, received a parting gift. Yep, a parting gift, a charge of resisting and an all-expense-paid trip to, get this, hang on to your hat, Grady Judd's Bed and Breakfast. That's Sheriff Grady Judd's Bed and Breakfast. That's what they call the Polk County Jail. And so, by the way, dear old Johnny, he now has another sign. All you got to go is just go to the booking page. Yep, the booking page, and there you'll find that Johnny Yates does indeed live there. And so that, my friend, is Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. Well, my friend, while the Crazy Crook went to jail, unfortunately, Jan Vandersloot did not go to jail for the murder of Natalee Holloway. But he did go to jail, but just not for her murder. He went to jail because he murdered another woman. He got in trouble again. Her name was Stephanie Flores. She was 21 years of age. She was a business student from a very wealthy family in Peru. She unfortunately crossed paths with Vandersloot on May the 30th, 2010. And that, my friend, interesting enough, was 5 years to the day of Holloway's disappearance. And because she found herself in the presence of this terrible guy, well, she wound up dead for it. Now, Vandersloot, he confessed to this one. He claimed that he killed her in a fit of anger after she learned about his connection to Holloway's disappearance. Now, they had met earlier in Stephanie's father's casino there in Peru, and he beat her to death in his hotel room that following morning. Now, in June 2010, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Northern District of Alabama, well, they announced an indictment on extortion and wire fraud against Vandersloot. Now, Vandersloot was in jail there in Peru, but they brought charges for Vandersloot allegedly trying to sell information about the whereabouts of Natalee's body to her family. Now, he had wanted $250,000. He required $25,000 to be paid up front. The rest was to be paid upon positive identification of her remains. That's what we get from court documents. After receiving $10,000, and by the way, this was a sting to get him in trouble, well, according to prosecutors, he led the family's lawyer there, John Q. Kelly, to a site, and he claimed that Holloway's remains was buried right there. But my friend, he lied again about this. And because he lied about this, he was now extradited back to Alabama. And here in Alabama, as a result of a plea deal, he was willing to make a confession to say what really happened to Natalee. Now, you might ask, how can we believe him? Well, I'm going to give you the opportunity to hear for yourself his very confession. So here is the confession of Vandersloot about what really happened to Natalee Holloway.
Deepak drops me off at a place a little right of the Marriott Hotel known as the Fisherman's Huts. This place is not so far from, the next hotel is the Marriott, and the next hotel after that is another Marriott, which is a timeshare, and then it's the Holiday Inn. We walk along the beach.
Do Deepak and Satish get out? Come with you. What happens?
Deepak and Satish leave. They leave. They go back to their home. I assume they go back to their home. They get in their car and they leave. I'm actually with Natalee walking along the beach. I find a space before we get to the Marriott Hotel, where I lay her down. We lay down together in the sand, and we start kissing each other. I get her to kiss me again. We start kissing each other. And I start feeling her up again, and she tells me no. She tells me she doesn't want me to feel her up. I insist. I keep feeling her up either way. And she knees me. She ends up kneeing me in the crotch. When she knees me in the crotch, I get up on the beach and I kick her extremely hard in the face. Yeah, she's laying down unconscious, possibly even dead, but definitely unconscious. And I see right next to her there's a huge cinder block laying on the beach.
When you say cinder block, looking at the walls of this place, is it like those?
The exact same cinder blocks. I see a huge cinder block laying on the beach. I take this and I smash her head in with it completely. Her face basically, collapses in. Even though it's dark, I can see her face is collapsed in. Afterwards, I don't exactly know what. I'm scared. I don't know what to do, and I decide to take her and to put her into the ocean. So I grab her and I half pull and half walk with her into the ocean. I push her off. I walk up to about my knees into the ocean, and I push her off into the sea. After that, I get out. I walk home.
Now, I'm going to tell you what I think about this confession, and also ask you what you think about the confession, but let's think about what Natalee's mom, Beth, thinks about it. In fact, Beth spoke with WBRC about that confession and how it feels that the investigation is finally closing. She said that, of course, she was exhausted, but that exhausting feeling was finally ending after 18 years of searching for the answers. She went on to say, quote, "It blisters your soul," end of quote, to hear what this guy did to Natalee, hitting her face with a cinder block, then leaving her in the ocean. But even though she said that, she said the difficult truth is giving the Holloways a sense of closure. She says the 18 years leading up to not knowing, well, that was more torturous than even taking the hard hit. Now, Vandersloot, he pleaded guilty to both wire fraud and extortion, and it was in the court documents as part of the plea deal that he would detail what actually happened in 2005. Now, Beth goes on to say, quote, "Now I can say that Vandersloot is no longer the suspect in Natalee's disappearance, but Vandersloot is the killer of Natalee. And that is huge," she said. "It has been solved. He is the killer. He did it alone. He acted alone." So it puts all those swirling theories to rest. Now, when she was asked why she believed this testimony now, she says, quote, "A lot of different processes have been going on to come together to this one conclusion. So when you take all the federal agents, we have a comprehensive and conclusive polygraph testing as well." Now, Vandersloot, of course, he says he's a changed man. He's given his life to Christ. But Beth said she didn't believe it. She said, "I think that's just hollow talk. I think it's typical from a double murderer, especially someone who extorted the mother of the victim out of money." She said that the 18-year-old long investigation closed meant that she knew what she was going to say directly to Vandersloot in the victim impact statement, and she did that. She went on to say, though, that the most meaningful thing for her to say to him was, "You are the killer. You're the one that did it." And she said, when she turned around, he looked like hell. He did it to himself. Now again, Beth says that she was involved in the development of the plea agreement, so she knew exactly what to suspect, and she's glad now that she has the answers. But what do you think? What do you think about this confession? Do you think it's real? Do you think it's truthful? Well, now, I'm going to take a few moments to tell you what I think. In fact, if you go back to our last episode on this series where I talked about what really happened to Natalee, you'll find that that episode was right on target as far as his confession. I mentioned a couple of things that I believe does confirm that this confession is real and it is the truth. First, on that episode, I talked about a consciousness of guilt. Now, this is where someone is guilty, and it will come out by this person even adding to or changing his or her story. I used the example of the Idaho College murders and how Brian Kohlberger turned off his cell phone during the murder time, which, in my opinion, revealed that he is the alleged killer of the Idaho College students. Well, in one of the first stories that Vandersloot told, if you remember, I told you in all the lies, you're going to find an element of truth in some of those lies, and to watch for those. And I pointed out in that episode that when he first told the first lie, perhaps of this whole series, or this whole incident, he said that they had dropped her off at the Holiday Inn. Now, we know that that was a lie. But in that lie, he said something else very, very important for you to target on. He said that when she got out of the car, she fell and hit her head. Now, we know that that is a lie. So in making up that lie, why in the world would he put something in that lie that she fell and hit her head? To show that she was intoxicated? Yes, perhaps. But I think there's something else going on there. I think that said to us that she died a violent death. He was talking about injury to her body. Maybe he was thinking at that time, well, what did they find her body? How would those injuries be explained? How would a blow to the head be explained? Therefore, he added flair to the story that she fell and hit her head. That was a lie, we know now, when he told him that he dropped her off the Holiday Inn and she fell in her head. We know why she has an injury to her head. He made that happen by kicking her in the face, hitting her over the head with a cement block. Now, there are also two more things that really convinces me that he's telling the truth. The first is the timeline of the night. Now, at some time during these series, I did mention that I thought that his father had a lot to do with covering this up, and I still believe he had a lot to do with covering it up. I even thought maybe that he helped his son get rid of the body. I really don't believe that now, though, because when you go to the timeline, you will realize that the timeline to kill Natalee was a very, very small window. From the time he left his friends and he was walking with Natalee, that could be verified, to the time that he was in his own home on his computer and texting, which again could be verified. From looking at these text messages back and forth and this communication between him and his friends, we can verify that his friends was at one spot, he was at the other spot, which was at his home, and we also can tell from even the time they left the party or the place at the bar where they were partying, we know that that's a very small window. There was not enough time to go get somebody else with a boat to take her out to the sea, as some people surmise. There was not enough time for them to get together and put her in a car and get shovels and go out into the area there that not anybody's around, I should say, out in the desolate part of Aruba, and bury her. There just wasn't enough time to do that. But there was just enough time to take her body, pull her, drag her, walk her into the ocean, and push her out into the sea, and then walk home. I believe the timeline itself confirms his story. And there's another. I called it in the past episodes, and go back and listen to those if you haven't already. Go to charliecrimebuster.com, hit on the Charlie shows, and you'll be able to see this series. But I mentioned back then a smoking gun. really wasn't a smoking gun. It was more like a smoking shoe. When I talked about what really happened to Natalee, it wasn't a gun, but it was his expensive tennis shoes that could not be found. You see, those he had to get rid of, because if there was a killing like he described, my friend, there would be blood all over those shoes and his clothes. Blood down into the crevices of those shoes that he could not get out. So what? He had to get rid of those. He had to get rid of the shoes. He had to get rid of the clothes that he wore that day. And we know now that the police could not find those expensive shoes. The police could not find any clothes that he wore that night. And my friend, that is very unfortunate. And that is, as I pointed out before, because the police did not move quick enough. They had their suspect. They knew that he was the last person seen with Natalee alive. They had him. They had him in their crosshairs. And they let him go. And it was days and days and days before they did a search of his premise. Had they searched it immediately, they may have found this evidence that would have tied him directly to the murder. But unfortunately, they did not. It took my friend bringing Joran Vandersloot to the United States of America, putting him under the scrutiny of America's justice system. It took all that to happen to finally get to the truth of what really happened to Natalee Holloway. And my friend, I believe it happened just the way it did. By the time they searched it, he had plenty of time to get rid of the shoes and the clothes. And it was one of the tales. And by the way, another thing about the consciousness of guilt. One of the times when one of his buddies was saying, he was talking to him, he said that they burned her bones. Some people thought maybe they took him to, took her somewhere to be cremated and all that. Well, I believe there was some truth in that. I believe there was a fire, but I believe that fire was not burning her bones. Again, the timeline would not allow them that much time. I believe she was pushed out into the sea, but I believe the fire was burning his clothes, maybe burning those shoes, getting rid of the evidence. You see, my friend, this monster, as just I indicated before, he became angry. He became angry once he was intoxicated. Oftentimes it was told that he would get angry and be very, very violent when he was drunk. Well, he was angry, he was intoxicated, and he snapped when she kicked him in the crotch. And as he said then, he kicked her face in, and he bludgeoned her to death in the face, in the head, with that block of cement, and then he took her body, and he released it into the sea. So yes, my friend, I believe this confession. I believe he had an opportunity to confess and get this off his chest, and at the same time did not face the same consequences for the murder due to the fact that he cannot be tried for what he said here in America, there in Aruba, and all of the laws they have there. So he felt he was free. He felt he could confess this with a plea deal toward his extortion charges. Well, I want to say a couple things in closing. First, as her dad, we talked about Beth Holloway, where Dave, too, he spent a lot of time and gone through a lot of agony with this whole situation, trying to find his little girl. Dave said this. He said after this confession, he was proud because he knew his little girl fought like hell for her life. She did not give in. She fought him. She resisted. And now, there's closure, as much as can be, in a tragedy like this for both Beth and Dave, her parents, the rest of Natalee's family, and her friends. This monster violently killed her. And in my opinion, my friend, at last, the case is solved. But what do you say? What say ye? What do you think about this confession? Was it real? Was it true? I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Be sure, if you want to get caught up on the entire series, go to charliecrimebuster.com, and there you're going to find the episodes, just click on the Charlie shows. By the way, we'll put all these links in the show notes, so all you have to do is click on it. And like her father also said, he said, parents, love your loved ones. You'll never know, perhaps, when it's the last time you have an opportunity to express that love. So take time, my friend, to pull those people close to you. Let them know that you love them. And by all means, my friend, as you go through life, be safe, be alert. Yep, for the life you save, it may be your very own.